Travel advisors spend more time on their logo than almost anything else when they're building or rebranding their website. Picking the right colors, trying different fonts, debating whether to include an icon and which one. Sometimes weeks go by before anything else gets done. And I understand the impulse. The logo is the most visible, most tangible thing you can point to as representing your brand. It feels important because it looks like brand work in a way that's concrete and finishable. But the logo is doing less than most people think. And the stuff that actually does the most work, the messaging, the copy, how you describe what you do and who you help, that tends to get less attention because it's harder and less concrete. That imbalance is what I want to try and correct. So today I want to get into something I call the everyone symbol. And once I name it, you're going to recognize it immediately. The everyone symbol is the globe, the compass, the airplane, the suitcase, the anchor, the world map, the visual icons that say travel business in a logo. They're the most common icon choices on travel advisor sites, and they share one specific problem. When your symbol is everyone's symbol, your logo is everyone's logo. That's the trap. And it's connected to a bigger set of misunderstandings about what logos do and don't do for a travel advisor's business. That's what I want to unpack today. I'm Justin Hinkle. This is the Travel Advisor Website Show. Hit subscribe. I want you to do something for a minute. Think about the last few travel advisor websites you've looked at. Yours, a colleague's, someone you found in a directory. Picture the logos. There's a decent chance at least one of them had a globe or a compass rose, maybe a small airplane silhouette, maybe an anchor, maybe a stylized map pin, maybe your business name with a little plane icon tucked in next to it, or replacing the dot over a letter. And those logos, they look fine. They look professional enough. They communicate travel clearly. There's nothing technically wrong with them. But here's the thing. If I pulled up 10 travel advisor websites right now, I'd probably see most of those symbols, maybe all of them. And they'd all look slightly different. Different fonts, different colors, different arrangements. But they'd all be communicating the same basic thing. Travel business. I'm a travel brand. I work with travel, which is the minimum possible information a logo can communicate. It puts you in a category without saying anything specific about you within that category. And the more advisors use the same symbols, the more those symbols become background noise. They stop registering as distinctive marks for specific businesses and start registering as generic signals for an entire industry. That's the everyone symbol problem. And understanding it changes how you think about not just your logo, but your whole approach to visual branding. Before I get into the everyone symbol specifically, I want to be clear about what a logo actually does. Because this isn't an argument that logos don't matter. They do, just not in the way most people think. The logo does a few real things. It gives you something recognizable to put consistently on everything, your website, your email signature, your social profiles, your proposals. That consistency reinforces that you're a professional business. When everything has the same visual mark on it, it creates a cohesive identity across different surfaces. It also communicates some basic things about your positioning through design choices, the colors, the typeface, whether it's simple or detailed, whether it feels modern or classic. Those signals land before anyone reads a word. And it's something clients recognize over time. Once someone has worked with you, your logo is the thing they associate with the experience. It's how they identify you when they see you again. Those are real functions, but notice what a logo does not do in that list. It doesn't explain what you specialize in. It doesn't tell someone why they should work with you versus another advisor. It doesn't build trust with a stranger who's never heard of you. It doesn't communicate that you've been to France 7 times, or that you specialize in luxury cruising, or that your clients consistently say you saved them from booking the wrong trip. All of that work, the work that actually moves someone from visitor to client, is done by your messaging. The logo can reinforce a message that's already there, but it can't create one. Here's where I think most misunderstanding lives around logos and what they're worth investing in. A good logo signals professionalism, and professionalism is part of trust. If your logo looks like it was made in 5 minutes with clip art, it does undermine how seriously someone takes the site. That's real. There's a floor, and you need to be above it. But a great logo doesn't build trust. It just removes a potential reason for doubt. Those are different things. Trust with a potential client comes from, do you clearly understand the trip I want to plan? Have you done this before? Do you seem like someone I'd enjoy working with? What other clients have said about working with you? None of that is communicated through the logo. All of it is communicated through the words on your site and the social proof you've built. So the logo has a floor. It needs to look professional enough that it doesn't give someone a reason to leave before they've read anything, but there's no real ceiling in terms of what it can do for you. A more elaborate, more expensive logo doesn't make clients trust you more or bring in better inquiries. It just looks more polished. And a lot of advisors are chasing a ceiling that doesn't exist, thinking if I can just get the logo right, the business will feel legitimate. But clients don't book trips because of the logo. They book because of everything else. Okay, so back to the specific problem, because the everyone symbol isn't just about being generic. It's about what the symbol is actively communicating in place of something useful. The globe says, I'm in the travel industry. The compass says, I'm in the travel industry. The airplane says, I'm in the travel industry. The suitcase, the anchor, the map pin, all the same sentence. And that sentence is the least useful thing your logo could be saying. Anyone who lands on your website already knows you're in the travel industry. That's why they're there. The logo doesn't need to reiterate the category. It needs to start to distinguish you within it. A word mark, just your business name treated well in a good typeface, does something the everyone symbol can't. Your business name is specific to you. Nobody else has it. And if that name is interesting or meaningful, a well-executed typeface treatment can make it visually compelling without needing to add a symbol that every other travel brand also has. I've seen advisors with genuinely distinctive business names who've buried them under a generic compass icon as if the name alone isn't enough to build a mark around. Sometimes the name is the logo. You don't need the plane. I want to be honest about why the everyone symbol is so common, because I don't think advisors make this choice carelessly. There's a real logic to it. When you're building a logo, you want it to communicate what you do, and the most direct way to communicate travel is to put a travel symbol in it. That's intuitive. It feels like clarity. I'm making sure people know immediately what this business is about. The problem is that the symbol is communicating the category, not the company. And everyone else in the category is using the same shorthand. So instead of clarity, you get sameness. There's also something about how icon-based logos feel more substantial than word marks to people who aren't designers. A word mark can seem like a font. Like you didn't really make a logo, you just picked a typeface. Where an icon feels like you designed something, like there's a real visual identity here. But the most recognizable logos in the world are often word marks. Your business name, done right, can be more distinctive than any symbol because the name is yours and the symbol isn't. I want to be fair here because I'm not saying icons are always wrong. They're not. An icon makes sense when it says something specific to your positioning rather than something generic about the category. Not I'm in the travel industry, but something about the kind of travel you do or the kind of experience you create. That's harder to find. It requires actually thinking about what visual element connects to your specific brand rather than defaulting to the nearest travel symbol. But when you find it, it does more for differentiation than a globe or compass ever would. It also matters how well the icon is executed. A simple, clean, intentionally designed icon that scales well and holds up at small sizes is different from a detailed illustration that looks fine on a website but becomes illegible on a business card. If you're using an icon, it should work at every size you'll ever need it. And there are cases where a simple, recognizable icon develops real meaning over time because it's been used consistently for years across a lot of surfaces. The icon works because it's become specifically associated with that advisor, not because it was distinctive from the start. That takes time, and it requires the consistency we talked about earlier. Since we're talking about logos, I want to spend a few minutes on what the design decisions inside a logo are actually signaling, because I think this is useful even if you're not changing your logo right now. Color is probably the most impactful choice. Dark navy, deep forest green, rich burgundy, muted gold, these tend to read as established and trustworthy, premium. If you're positioning yourself as a luxury travel specialist, this color territory is where I'd look. Bright colors, turquoise, coral, bright orange, vibrant yellow, they tend to read as fun, accessible, energetic, tropical. Not wrong if that matches what you're building. If you specialize in family travel or Caribbean vacations and you want the brand to feel warm and approachable, brighter colors work, but they don't tend to signal luxury. Neutral palettes, soft grays, warm whites, creams, they tend to feel modern and minimal, clean, contemporary. That works for a lot of different positioning. The mistake I see most often is a mismatch between the color palette and the positioning. An advisor who wants to be perceived as a luxury specialist but has a bright turquoise logo, An advisor who's targeting families but has a very dark, austere palette that feels more like a law firm, the color should match the energy of what you're actually building. Font choices work similarly. Serif fonts, the ones with the small horizontal strokes at the ends of the letter forms, they tend to feel established, traditional, and slightly formal. Sans serif fonts feel modern and approachable. Script fonts can feel elegant or casual depending on the weight. Combining fonts in a logo can work, but without a clear reason for the combination, it usually just looks like two fonts sitting next to each other. Tools like Canva have made it genuinely possible for non-designers to create logos that look reasonably professional. And for a lot of advisors, especially earlier in the business, a clean and simple Canva logo is completely fine. It's professional enough, it's consistent, and it lets you put something real on your site without spending money on a designer before you need to. Where DIY logos fall apart is when they try to be too complex. Detailed illustrations, multiple elements, intricate design, that kind of logo requires real design skill to execute well. And in the beginner tool, it tends to look slightly off. Proportions are a little wrong, weights are inconsistent, something that's hard to identify, but it's easy to feel. Simple DIY logos almost always look better than complex ones. A clean word mark in a good font with a consistent color is a much safer DIY option than a logo with a globe and an airplane and a compass and your name underneath it all. If you're DIYing your logo, the honest question is, does this look like it could have come from a real brand, or does it look like it came from a logo maker? Show it to a few people who will be honest with you. If they say it looks great, it's probably fine. If they hesitate, simplify. Now, there are specific situations where hiring a professional designer for a logo makes real sense. One is when you've been running your business for a while, you've got genuine clarity on your positioning and your ideal client, and the visual presentation of your brand is actually holding you back. You've grown into more premium positioning, and the logo you started with doesn't match where you are. That's a legitimate case for a rebrand. Another is when the visual identity is a meaningful part of how you market yourself. You do a lot of in-person events, you send significant branded materials to clients, you've built a social presence where your visual recognition matters. In those situations, a stronger visual identity pays off more because it's working across more surfaces more often. And the third is if you're working with a web designer who includes logo work in the project, you're getting it as part of a cohesive design process, which tends to produce better results than a standalone logo fitted into a site afterward. But if you're still figuring out your specialty, you're in the early stages of building the business, and you don't have a lot of surfaces where the logo is doing work, a clean, simple, inexpensive logo is fine. Put the energy into your messaging. I want to say something about consistency, because it's part of the logo conversation that matters most in practice and gets talked about the least. A logo only does its recognition work if it's used consistently. The same version, the same colors, the same proportions, everywhere. On the website, the email signature, social profiles, any printed materials, the proposals you send clients. What I see frequently is logos that have been recreated slightly differently across different places. The colors are a little different, the font is slightly off. One version has an element, another version doesn't. And the cumulative effect of that inconsistency is that the brand never fully registers. It never becomes a recognizable thing because it's always slightly different. If you're going to have a logo, make sure you have the actual files. Ideally, a vector file that scales to any size without losing quality, and that you use those files everywhere. If you worked with a designer, ask for the files in multiple formats. A full color version, a white version for dark backgrounds, a version that works at small sizes. That file management isn't glamorous, but it's where the logo actually starts doing its recognition work. I want to come back to something that I think is the most important reframe in this whole conversation, which is the relationship between your logo and your brand. People use those two words interchangeably sometimes, and they're really not the same thing. Your brand is the complete impression people have of your business. It's your logo, your colors, your photography, your copy, how you communicate with clients, what people say about working with you, the experience someone has from the moment they find your site through the moment they get home from a trip you planned. All of that together is your brand. Your logo is one visible piece of that, an important piece, but one piece. And the most important parts of your brand as a travel advisor aren't visual at all. They're relational. The impression clients have of what it feels like to work with you, how well you listen, how thoroughly you research, how you handle it when something goes wrong, what someone tells their friends when they get home. That's where the brand actually lives. And no logo work touches any of it. I think advisors sometimes focus on the logo because it feels like concrete, achievable brand work. The logo feels done when it's done. The messaging is ongoing. The client experience is ongoing. The positioning is something you're always refining. The logo is something you can finish. But the finishing feeling is a little misleading. The logo being done is the beginning, not the end. It's the surface that the rest of the brand work shows up on. So, practically, here's how I think about the logo if you're evaluating where to focus right now. If you have a logo that looks reasonably professional and consistent, leave it. Put your energy into the copy and the site. The logo is not what's holding you back. If you have something that's genuinely rough, DIY to the point where it's undermining the professional feel of the site, it's worth a small investment to clean it up. A simple word mark and a good font is usually a fast, inexpensive fix. If you're using an everyone symbol, a globe, compass, plane, anchor, or any of the usual travel icons, it's worth at least asking whether that symbol is doing anything specific for you or whether it's just categorizing you. You don't have to change it immediately, but it's a useful question. And if you're in that place where you're spinning on the logo as a way of feeling like you're making progress on the brand, notice that. The copy and the messaging and the clarity of your positioning are doing the actual work. Get those right, and the logo becomes something that supports a brand that already exists, which is the right order. The everyone symbol isn't the reason your site isn't converting. Neither is the wrong shade of navy or a font that's slightly too formal. The logo work matters, but it matters at the margins, not at the center. The center is what you say and who you say it to. Get that right, and the logo just needs to not get in the way. There's a lot more in this direction. Stick around. I'm Justin Hinkle. This is the Travel Advisor Website Show. Hit subscribe.